Good morning, viewers. From the nationwide broadcast by President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday on the COVID-19 lockdown, here are the key highlights. There will be an overnight curfew from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. This means all movement will be prohibited during this period except for essential services. There will be a ban on non-essential interstate passenger travel until further notice. Partial and controlled interstate movement of goods and services will be allowed for the movement of goods and services from producers to consumers. They will be strictly ensuring that mandatory use of face masks or coverings in public, in addition to maintaining physical distancing and personal hygiene. Furthermore, the restrictions on social and religious gatherings shall remain in place. State governments, corporate organizations, and philanthropists are encouraged to support the production of cloth masks for citizens. For the avoidance of doubt, the lockdown in FCT Abuja, Lagos, and Ogun states will remain in place until the new ones come into effect on Monday, 4th of May 2020. A total lockdown has been announced in Kano State for the next 2 weeks. Also, in the address of the President, it was stated that the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 will provide sector-specific details to allow for preparations by governments, businesses, and institutions. In respect to the above guidelines spelled out by the President in his address, state governors may choose to adapt and expand based on their unique circumstances, provided they maintain alignment with the guidelines issued above. The federal government also assured Nigerians that there will be support for businesses and traders from the monetary and fiscal authorities side, and the President reassured that they will deploy all necessary provisions needed for production to continue and thus jobs restored. Today on Economy and Politics Economics Discourse, we'll be looking at COVID-19, tax measures to reposition Nigeria's economy. With us to lead this discourse is Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, partner and West African tax leader for Waterhouse Coopers. Nice to have you, sir. Good morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And yes, we went through 2 phases of lockdowns in Lagos, Abuja, and Ogun State. I just want to ask you your experience so far. This is almost a month now in terms of the lockdown.
Yeah, so I think it's been difficult because many businesses were not prepared for the situations we've gone through in the past 1 month in Lagos and the FCT. In my organization, for example, we have been working from home for over 5 years, but we never had a scenario where all our staff will be working from home. So our assumption had been 20%, 30% of your staff will work from home. So we suddenly find ourselves in a situation, and it's been difficult. On one hand, government, for example, did not recognize that technology is an essential service. So we ask people to stay home, work from home, but we do not allow the technology support team to go to the offices. So when the infrastructures are down or laptops stop working, there's nobody to fix it because they can't move around. It's been tough, but I think it's the price we all have to pay for our safety and then for the overall interest of our country, Nigeria.
Yes. There's a price to pay because health is very important. And across the world, we see that leaders are facing that challenge making key critical decisions on health and the economy. But those have to work in line. And very nice response from you. And even nice to hear about the remote work operations in your esteemed organization. But let's first look at the COVID-19 pandemic and tax implications for businesses in Nigeria. What's your assessment so far?
I think so we could have done a lot of things better. We still have the time they said the best time to plant a tree was maybe 2 years ago. The next best time is today. There's time for us to try and do some of that. The response has been slow. I've seen particularly from the National Assembly. In many countries, you find that the measures that are being introduced are being codified. So you find the lawmakers, the parliament, getting to work and getting this done very quickly, because what you don't want to do is to add certainties in terms of what are the measures, what would those things mean for our businesses, for individuals. You don't want to add those uncertainties top of what we already have. And that means that you have a legal framework that people can take to the bank, technically, because COVID-19 will come and it will go, and the implications will still be with us. People don't want to start fighting tax battles with the authorities after COVID-19. I'll say from the angle of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, they have, tried to some extent to introduce measures such as extension of filing returns. They have some measures for, online submission of tax returns. Have palliatives in terms of, in some cases, you don't have to pay penalty for late payments where applicable, and also they have doing tax audit on in principle how this is working at the state level. Only very few states have even done anything at all. So we've had Lagos State, FCT, and a few other states extend deadline for filing returns, but not really anything much more than that. I would have expected, for example, the tax authority to come together under the platform of the Joint Tax Board to issue measures that will be applied consistently across Nigeria, and then layered on top of that, the circumstances that are peculiar to each state. You can then introduce additional measures. The Ministry of Finance have introduced quite a number of measures, and I'll commend them for that, but of course, not enough, because the size and the scale we're dealing with is quite huge.
Now, you know that taxation is very critical, and most developed economies
anchor their revenue on tax, and that's why they have to provide effective service, infrastructure, and governance for the citizens. In Nigeria, our tax to GDP is around 7%, and I know that we're still trying to scale that. We will still discuss about that much in the show. But from you as an expert who has been in the industry and supported planning and strategy for Nigeria's tax policy, what would be the key tax measures that can reposition our Nigerian economy even as we have this pandemic and even post-COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, so this is an important question. So many economies, like you rightly said, run their government, they run their economies, they provide infrastructure, they provide services, conditional cash transfer, all of based on tax revenue. Unfortunately, that is not the case in Nigeria. I know that a lot of Nigerians are quick to say government is not giving us money like they are doing in the US, in the UK, but then we don't complete that story. Where would government find the money from? Where would the money come from? The countries that are giving in large scales are getting it from the money paid by other citizens. In Nigeria, that is not enough. So what has happened is, Nigeria developed and approved a national for 2017. Implementation has been slow. So our tax base is more, the tax net is equal more. And because you don't have, good data to even track your citizens, you don't have good data to know who is supposed to be paying taxes. And those data where they are do not speak to one another. The data on land registry does not speak to the data with tax authority for personal income tax. It does not speak to the data for registration. It does not speak to the data for international travels. So hide it and get away with not paying taxes. Overall, the consequence has been that we do not have the fiscal space to be able to do what we need to do at this time. Before COVID-19, Nigeria was already struggling in terms of revenue and the ability to meet recurrent and capital expenditure, such that debt burden was growing and the budget deficit was very high. This is not only at the federal government, but also at the state level. Now, what has happened now is COVID-19 has amplified those problems. And as much as I have to say that we cannot solve those problems overnight, I think that COVID-19 also presents an opportunity. Like they always say, do not waste a crisis. This is the point where we need to make those very important decisions about how do we raise tax revenue, How do you increase the tax base? How do you eliminate, tax incentive waivers that do not add value to the economy? How do you ensure that you gain efficiency in terms of tax expenses, deductions, allowables, credit, and even trying to just bring in more people into the tax net? If you take, government-owned enterprise that we call for example, into account, you find the level of tax compliance by MDAs are appalling. Many of them don't even pay the taxes they're supposed to pay. They collect PAYE for their staff, AT from their vendors and withholding tax, and they don't even remit. And then they also, some of them generate revenue, and they keep those revenue and they mismanage them. So imagine if today you can get government-owned enterprises at federal, at state, local government level to all do the right thing in terms of paying taxes that are due, and wherever they generate revenue, to remit those revenue to government. You probably even just pass to GDP ratio immediately to about 10%. So overall, it's a challenging time. We need to learn our lesson. It's a hard lesson but we shouldn't waste the opportunity to use this time and making very drastic reforms to the tax system.
Now, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, I just wanted to ask you about crisis time. Crisis time, like several leaders are saying, is like war times, and these are challenging times for businesses, like you said, in terms of activities and gaining revenue and supporting the economy. Will it be the best time, therefore, for the regulator that manages tax and revenue to advise businesses who they think are booming to pay tax? Or isn't it a time to really look at how businesses can be supported so they can be in that position to pass through this period and then be in good health balance to begin to support the economy by paying tax?
Yeah, I don't mutually exclusive. Not one that you can do both. On one hand, also where data is very important. In a time like this, there will be sectors of the economy that are even doing better. Communication companies they can't even cope with demand for data, for example. So which means they're likely to be making more money now. Whereas you also have sectors that are struggling, airlines, hotels. So it is not a one size fits all. It has to be that government look at how do you target the sectors that are doing well to do and meet their tax obligations as at when due, so that the money you raise from them, you can use part of that to support sectors that are vulnerable. And when you want to support the sectors that are vulnerable in a country where your resources are very limited, like Nigeria, you have to do targeted measures. For example, if you say you want to protect employment and you look at the hospitality industry, you look at airline, it will not be everybody that is vulnerable. For example, the top executives are usually not vulnerable because they need to be there to run the company. So your target, therefore, will be for the people at the bottom of the ladder who don't earn a lot. One, they are vulnerable because they are the ones that would easily be laid off. Number two, because they are laid off, they who don't have savings and investment to even survive another one without any income. So you have to target your measures because your resources are limited, such that you get maximum impact for every 1 naira that you spend or that you give away in terms of opportunity cost of waivers. Having said that, you also have to think about, at this time, is there a way you can raise revenue? And I'll give you a good example. So the price of crude oil has been coming down in the international markets, and therefore it has meant that the pump price of petroleum products have been coming down. So the federal government reduced the price of petrol from 145 initially to 125 and then to 123 naira 50 kobo. And one thing for free is that the price of services did not come down. Even transportation fare did not come down. So what does that mean? It means that the benefit of that reduction, the pump price of petrol and other fuel products, was not going to the vulnerable people. It was not going to the poor people. It was kept by the middle class, the transporters, the businesses. I'm not saying that is bad, but I'm saying that if you take a cue from the rest of the world, you find that what makes are doing at this time, which they have been doing in some cases, even before now, is you have fuel taxes. You have fuel taxes. Many of the countries around us in West Africa sell a liter of petrol as of today as high as about 300 naira equivalent. So what that means is the taxes that you have to collect from the fuel that you are selling is helping you to generate revenue for government, and you can then redirect those revenue to take care of vulnerable people at this time and also protect sectors that are exposed to business continuity risk as a result of COVID-19. So this thinking process has to really be going in Nigeria now so that we can get through this with the least possible pain possible.
Okay, let's look at states now, how they should approach taxation.
As we move and look at states, I would like you to also key into the need for transparency and accountability. In times like this, it's time for governments to take the lead by taking those measures that shows the nation and even the private sector that, yes, we're ready to really align with the realities of the moment. For example, cutting down costs, reviewing their pay cuts, as we see in various private sector organizations. So like Governor Nasiru Rufai, he announced yesterday that there's a 50% pay cut for political office holders in Kaduna State. Shouldn't that be actions that should be taken across board from federal to subnational? And then you can move on to look at how subnationals can approach tax in this period.
Yeah, let me just point about cutting pay of public officers. I know that even the president had announced, some pay cuts for ministers and all of that before the ones we are hearing from some of the governors. But I have to say that I'm not a fan of asking public servants and public officers to cut their pay. I think maybe it's only symbolic and it's only political. One, how much is the cost that you're talking about? Very insignificant, because their official remuneration is already very, very small. What is important in the public sector is the wastage. So the official amount that even the president, who is the highest paid civil servant, is earning is less than what the bank manager or general manager is earning. So it's not that pay. What you find that sometimes a governor, goes, before COVID-19, you travel abroad and your allowance extra for one night is equal to your 1 month pay. So what Nigerians should be focusing on is not their salary. It should be those wastages. Take national, for example. So, but I know it's symbolic and many Nigerians would like it. So, but my view on it is that, Now, if you move to the second point you made around transparency, unfortunately, trust and transparency is not something you tell people and you make it happen immediately. You have to earn it. And it's something you earn over time. Historically, Nigerian government, whether you're talking about state or local government, have not been able to earn the trust of Nigerians. So they're not going to suddenly earn it overnight because of COVID-19. But start the process. To be able to earn trust, you have to be transparent. You have to be transparent generate. You have to be transparent how much you spend out of the money, what you are spending it on, and even the process for awarding contracts, for example, has to be completely transparent. Then you start to build the trust. Today, Nigerian government and our public officers will come out and speak and say anything, and in the next minute, Nigerians are forming conspiracy theories around it. They say, well, don't trust them. That's not what they mean. This is what they want to do, because there's no trust. So I think that we can take advantage of COVID-19 and start to process of building that trust. Whether you're talking about nation from private sector, whether you're talking about the reliefs that are coming from the international community, including the money you still share from federation accounts and the IGR we are generating, let's be 100% transparent, and then we begin to build trust. Now, in terms of states and where would they generate money from? So every state has to look at their affairs very differently in order to approach generating revenue. For states where they have a good number of high net worth, this is the time to pay attention to high net worth individuals, because the high net worth individuals are affected immediately by COVID-19. They have resources. They can take care of themselves for years. Many of them have billions. This is a time to focus on their tax compliance. Make sure that not only do they comply correctly and full amount of taxes they need to pay. If you think about it, many high net worth individuals have properties. In Nigeria, property taxes is one area we haven't performed well, because every time, government is influenced by the elites, such that if you want to impose taxes on property, the people who have properties will push back. Whereas what you're supposed to do is design your property tax such that you eliminate, pensioners, people who have, residential homes, is the only home they are living in, they are not generating money. Take out all those people and then focus on people who have properties that are of high values and those who have commercial properties, and let them pay taxes. Now, those are taxes that you will always be able to get, whether there's a crisis like COVID-19 or not. For other states have a lot of high net worth individuals, you just have to accept that time that revenue will not come in. And the little you have, PAYE and all of that, you have to be super efficient with how those money spent. Look at your every line of your expense and say, are there expenses that we can get rid of? Are there expenses that we can delay? Are there those ones that we can reduce? And then that way you begin at efficiency in terms of how do you maximize value from the revenue that you have. This also extends to local government. We don't tend to talk about them, every time. Yeah. But local governments, we don't even know what they're doing. So in terms of lack of what at local government level, a friend said that, he considers local government as, revenue sharing committee. That what they just do is they get whatever them and they share it. Nobody's asking them questions. Many of those of us don't even know who are the chairmen of our local government. So it's that bad. But due transparency at all levels of government for us to get over this line as possible.
I remember that at the 10th detailed Solicitors Business Series, you made a point that Nigerian citizens need to be active in the affairs of the states and even our local government, so they can also be incentivized to pay taxes. So definitely we need to engage more, and that is a role both from government, private sector, and all stakeholders in the country. But let's look at something interesting. The Finance Act Finance Act 2019 signed in 2020, and which is supposed to really transform our fiscal space, ensure that we can really ramp up around our fiscal space and even encourage small and medium enterprises. What are the implications of COVID-19 on the Finance Act?
Yeah, I think the Finance Act forward-looking, let me say, put it that way, because already the Finance Act introduced a lot of palliatives, particularly for SMEs, exemption from paying companies' income tax, exemption from charging VAT if you are below 25 million naira a year in turnover. You have exemption from paying stamp duties, transfer money that is 10,000 or less. A number of measures, expansion of VAT exemption list to cover more basic consumptions. So I'll say in large measure, the Finance Act was forward-looking, and it was good that we had it earlier on in the year. Now, in terms of implementation, of course, there will be challenges. On one hand, when you're introducing a new law or changes to your laws that are very, significant and sweeping in nature, people will struggle to adjust because people don't like, changes. So, which means you needed to invest a lot in capacity building authorities. You need to invest in capacity building for your finance. For example, the finance minister to issue significant economic preference guidelines. You need capacity. You need capacity for officers in a federal and a state level. All those capacity building require a face-to-face interaction. Now, it's this now to call tax officers together and be training them. You can't do it physically. If you want to do it online, it's a little bit complicated training people online. Not that it's impossible. If you want to get National Assembly, they were away because of COVID-19, just resuming, I think, today. Whereas
yes.
Assembly was supposed to be working 24/7 and passing laws. So that hasn't happened. And I heard someone saying that, the National Assembly budgets about 10% of their budget goes to IT every year. So where is the IT for them now to be passing law remotely? We haven't seen that. So the challenge for implementing the Finance Act is now compounded by COVID-19. Not only on the part of government and government officers in terms of FRS, state authorities, but also on the part of the taxpayers. The taxpayers and tax professionals are to be agents that will help the tax system work. And I was supporting ICANN, for example, and even CITN to do training, for their members. And we've only just barely done a few of those training on the Finance Act before COVID-19, which means many professionals are not even well grounded on what they need to do. Overall, government has to expect that there will be, a slowdown in the level of adoption of the changes that have been introduced by the Finance Act. And in terms of the revenue, VAT was increased to 7.5% for it. But businesses are closed. So if the stores are not open, they can't even charge VAT, whether it's 5 or 7.5%. Overall, this would impact the finance, but it doesn't change the fact that a lot of the measures that were introduced in the Finance Act are still very relevant and of course to be embraced.
Yeah. And how does this impact our non-sector revenue projection for 2020
budget? Also, you know that the finance minister, she revised our benchmark from $57 to $30. That's for a crude oil benchmark.
Yes, so the benchmark from 57 to 30 was necessary. In fact, many people are now $30 per barrel is unrealistic because the trend we're seeing now is, the price of Brent somewhere, and it might even get worse because on one hand, there's a demand problem. So global demand has reduced by over 20 million barrels per day from around 100 million that it used to be. The cut that OPEC, said they were going to do was only 9.7 million barrels per day, which they have oversupply. And then people who were storing this no longer have storage capacity, so you can't even store. That was why at some point, TI, that's Texas crude, was the futures was negative because the price of stock was more than the value of the crude oil, so it was negative. Now, so this means that Nigeria should not expect that the price of crude oil per barrel would even get $30 anytime soon, because after we get rid of coronavirus, then you have to pray for countries that will drive consumption of crude oil to get back to normality. That would be the US in particular. That would be China. That would be India. So until you start seeing consumption of crude oil, that price will not go. What it means is not only would we have decline in oil revenue, we're going to have impact on non-oil revenue. The non-oil revenue will cut across collection by FRS, value-added tax, companies' income tax, excise duties, but also on the part of custom. So import duties will go down because people are not importing. Imports. VAT import will go down because again, importation is on the decline because many stores are closed and essentials are being imported at this time. So overall, it's going to be a tough period for fiscal management, but we have to just get this. And one, when you borrow externally, you're able to get foreign exchange that can help you defend your local currency from significant devaluation. Second reason is because you just don't have the money. And Nigeria is not a country where you can print naira, spend your way through crisis. America can do that because US dollars is a global reserve currency. So America can just decide to print dollars and spend their way through the crisis, but Nigeria can't. So it means we then have to do some borrowing. On top of that, we need to look inward for efficiency and then look for how do you get comply. And And then how do you get that to ensure that people who have the ability to pay at this time and do not take advantage of the system?
Oh.
For the fiscal space, I mean, this is a low revenue situation you've created, shown us. You also shown us the challenges that government will have in hitting its non-oil sector revenue, which has been its target, driving a...
No, I think it's an important one. I'll say coordination. So we need to think about Nigeria as entity, such that when we have a crisis like this, a national crisis, not a federal government crisis, not a state crisis, it's not a local government crisis, it's a national crisis. It means the way we respond to this has to be coordinated across levels of government and also by arms of government. So what the National Assembly is doing should ride on the back of the executive, and then they should work together. So coordination will be the first thing that I would recommend. Number two is data. Data is not something you get overnight, but you can start by building the infrastructure to collect the data. For example, if I had said during this period that the palliative that government is giving would first and foremost people who have tax identification. Having tax identification number does not mean that you should have paid tax. It just means that you should have registered. So in the US, it was easy to just send, cash to people, their tax numbers in IRS. Because everybody registers with the IRS, whether you have money to pay tax or not, it's a different thing altogether. If you had adopted measures, by this time, you encourage more people to register, and then they get palliative, such that when they start making money, they can't run away. You can then, get them. And also those data that we have, they have to be harmonized to each other. Number three that I recommend is that this is the time to look at reforms. In terms of, for example, we have over 61 different taxes officially. Unofficially, the number of taxes all over federal, state, and local government are more than 200. Why don't we use the opportunity of this crisis to take a second look at those taxes, the ones that are really just feeding, the pockets of politicians and corrupt house, and just repeal all of them? If we have a bill to repeal 60 different tax laws in Nigeria, you can imagine how it to the business communities that are high yield, and also clean those taxes up. Stamp duty, for example, is very difficult to understand. Can we not limit stamp duty to high value items? Can we not focus on CIT and VAT and eliminate particularly authorities and corrupt people will take advantage of? So those would be my three, closing thoughts: coordination, and then ensuring that we have harmonization, as well as ensuring that we have the way that we put all of this together in a coordinated manner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele. We indeed need coordination in our tax system and strategy. We need harmonization, especially leveraging data to ensure that this becomes a very strategic step for revenue, but also supporting the state and driving infrastructure and being there for businesses and the people, even when they go through challenging times and crises. That was that can reposition Nigeria's economy with you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And that'll be all for this conversation on the Economy and Politics show today. Continue with our conversation on the market review from 10 a.m. Join us by that time.